Good morning, everyone. I am Brenda Shelton-Dunston. I am on the steering committee, and I'm the executive director of the Black Women's Health Alliance in Philadelphia. I'd like to also introduce Maryann Napoli. Maryann is the associate, or was the associate director of the Center for Medical Consumers from 1976 to 2012 in New York City. She was a contributor to the Cochrane Collaboration from 2001 to 2013 and a member of CUE ever since it was established by the U.S. Cochrane Center. Maryann?
For this panel, I'm asked to address a question I never asked myself. Am I making a difference? To me, that means something big, like I have ever done the equivalent of sway the jury, or even made a dent in the culture of physician-authored screening guidelines. And that culture too often means withholding risk information or downplaying the known risks, say, of radiation to the breast and thyroid. And worst of all, the lack of full disclosure of the new improved CT scan's ability to find cancers that would never become lethal and had they gone undetected and untreated. I was more likely to accept invitations to screening guidelines committees because it always bothered me that screening tests were, and still are, portrayed to the public as a must-do, risk-free activity. Rarely are the gaps in crucial information mentioned. There's only one time I came close. I was trying to be positive with this, but it's going to end negatively, I'll warn you. There's only one time I came close to making a difference, and it was Sandy's organization, the American College of Chest Physicians. And this time it was guidelines for aimed at former smokers. And this was based on our work. I joined this committee. Our work was to basically work with one study, because that's all there was, and it was very well designed. And they showed a small reduction in lung cancer deaths when former smokers were subjected to annual low-dose screening scans for 6 years. When looked at absolute terms, this study was not impressive to me. The reduction was tiny, a drop in deaths that were approximately 0.5%. That doesn't look so good in absolute risk reduction terms. I remember thinking, I would never have this if I were a smoker. Think of all the downstream excess tests and detections of cancers you didn't need to know about. After our lung screening guidelines committee was disbanded, Sandy sent us all a paper based on our work that would be published in JAMA. I was thrilled to see the uncertainties and potential harms mentioned in the abstract, no less. Think of how many doctors and medical reporters read only the abstract, I thought. Perhaps I might have had a small role in the wording of that abstract. When I downloaded that paper in the present, which is last week, I wanted to make sure that the conclusion of the abstract was the same as I remembered it. And I was happy to see it was. I'm going to read the conclusion to you. Low-dose screening lung scans may benefit individuals at an elevated risk for lung cancer, but uncertainty exists about potential harms and the generalizability of results. Reading that paper last week made me realize I probably had little input into this conclusion so long ago that remained in it today. Because I learned in a literature search that this is the third edition of what I was shown in the abstract so long ago. As Sandy mentioned when asking me to join the group, our work would be merged with two other physician organizations doing their own versions of the same guidelines, thus watering down the possibility that I might have had anything to do with the impressive conclusion. While taking this look back at my involvement with lung cancer screening, I came across an article that I had saved on the new lung screening guidelines for smokers. I like to see how studies are relayed to the public. The Wall Street Journal reporter made the typical mistake using only the 20% relative risk reduction in deaths thanks to annual lung scans for 6 years, thus leaving the impression that the scans were far more helpful in reducing cancer deaths than they truly are. So there you have it. I might have made a small difference, but once I took the time to check, it now seems kind of likely. And that conclusion I was so happy about. I asked myself why I didn't argue for the inclusion of these small cancers that you didn't need to know about, some of which will be treated and maybe ruin your life. So in that conclusion, that wound up to be more negative than I had hoped when I started this talk to work it back. I felt that I should, since it was Sandy's organization, if you wanted to offer a rebuttal to my view of what happened at this American College of Chest Physicians committee I was on so long ago.